never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Go out tonight and support your local high school team, wherever you are and whoever they may be. Go out and support your local high school team. But today here on the channel, I want to talk about a topic that actually I talked with a co-worker about it. I believe it was on Tuesday, and I figured, you know what, if I have to tell him about it, maybe I need to talk about it on the channel. And that is, how did Georgia have it made, and why so many of their fans were disgusted with them up until they won back-to-back national championships. And I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But first, I want to talk about the college basketball AP poll, because it came out last week, and college basketball is right around the corner. I know a lot of people don't talk about it and don't think about it because college basketball starts in the middle of college football season. Not only that, but to a lot of people, college basketball don't really matter until January or February, if not March, because you can lose your first 10 games and still make it to the NCAA tournament. And even though the season's about to start, typically most teams only play 8 or 9 games before the end of the year, and then January is when it really starts cranking up. But a lot of people do watch it because college basketball is mainly played on weeknights. So if your college football team plays on a Thursday or a Saturday, which in most cases they do, but then if your basketball team plays on a Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night, you're free to watch them. Kansas is the number one team in the college basketball AP poll, followed by Duke, Purdue, Michigan State, and Marquette. And I wish they would quit ranking Purdue so high. I know they have talent. I know that. We all see that. But they have talent every year, and they do so good. And then they go to the big dance, and they're out by the second round. So I wish they would start making Purdue prove themselves before they rank them high, instead of ranking them high because they have talent. Because obviously up to this point the talent has not helped at all. UConn, number 6, followed by Houston, Creighton, Tennessee, and probably the shocker of them all, if you see the AP poll in college basketball, Florida Atlantic is ranked number 10. Gonzaga, Arizona, Miami, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. 16 through 20 is Kentucky, San Diego State, Texas, North Carolina, and Baylor. And 21 through 25 is USC, Villanova, St. Mary's, Alabama, and Illinois. And I'm not at all surprised that the number one team is Kansas. They've got a couple of huge supposed five-star guys that are returning from last year's team. Plus, they've got a five-star guy that is transferring in. I ain't got to tell you about him. Everybody knows who he is because he's the guy that made the comments about the whole name, image, likeness thing. I think about right after last season ended, so we all know who he is. So Kansas should at least be a Sweet 16 team this year, if not a Final Four team. If they go out in the first weekend, there's a big, big problem. But on to today's main topic. As I said a while ago, it's talking about Georgia. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because, as I said, I was having a conversation earlier in the week with a co-worker, and he's a Georgia fan, and he's young, 25 maybe. So, of course, up until Georgia has won these last two national championships, all he'd ever seen was either Georgia be a top 5 team or a top 10 team most years, but never could finish it off. And, of course, he wasn't alive 40 plus years ago when they won their other national championship. And he was asking me how come a lot of the older Georgia fans were so disgusted and mad at Georgia up until they won these last two national championships. And I told him it's because Georgia is the only team that really truly has it made, maybe LSU. Now let me explain what I mean by that. You look at all 50 states. Now I'm talking about the states that have FBS programs. So Vermont and Maine and Rhode Island and Delaware and states like that, throw out of the bucket. But the states that have FBS teams, Georgia and maybe LSU are the only ones that have it made. And what I mean by that is, you look at Georgia, honestly, really, truly, Georgia is the only FBS school in the state. Now, I know Georgia has Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech is a tech school, so it's much, 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 much harder to get in there. Plus, unlike Georgia, Georgia Tech actually makes you go to class and finish school. And it's a tech school, so they don't have as many of the available options that Georgia has as far as academically. So Georgia has it made because any 4 and 5 star player in the state is going to go to Georgia. But not only that, you look at the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a stretch where between Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, Florida was terrible. Toward the end of Bobby Bowden's tenure, Florida State was terrible. Miami's been bad for 20 plus years. And there's a lot of high school talent in Florida. So you have the high school talent in Florida, and you have all that talent in Georgia, in the city of Atlanta, that are all going to Georgia. So you had about a 15, 16, 17 year stretch where Georgia was top 10 every year, top 5 most years in recruiting, and they won nothing. So that's why so many Georgia fans were upset, because Georgia really truly is the only program in America that has it made, because they're the only big-time program within a 300-mile radius to a lot of high school kids. LSU is probably the other one because it's the only big-time program in the state of Louisiana. But now Louisiana doesn't have the high school talent that Georgia does, but Texas has just as much, if not more, high school talent than Georgia does. But the difference is, even though Texas is not far from Louisiana, you got to look at all the FBS schools in Texas that are battling for the same players LSU's battling for. So you've got all those programs right around all those Texas schools and all the Louisiana schools that LSU is battling for, because there is some high school talent in Louisiana, but not like there is in Georgia. But Texas has a ton. But each school is only allowed to get so many kids. So when you've got Texas and Texas Tech and Texas A&M and Baylor and so on right there in Texas trying to chase the same kids that LSU's chasing, is a little more difficult. Whereas in Georgia, you've got all those kids from Atlanta with only one school in mind, and that's Georgia. So that's why so many of the older Georgia fans are disgusted, because really, truly, Georgia was the only program in America that finished top 10 in recruiting. I think it was 10 straight years, and they won nothing. And when you have that kind of talent year in, year out, and you can't win anything, if you're a fan of that team, it can be disgusting. Now, you have to be a true fan and stick with them, because if you change your allegiance, you're not a true fan. But it can be disgusting when you see that your school is the only school in America that's recruiting that kind of talent year in, year out, and you can't do anything with it. So the city of Athens as a whole is probably, I would say, top 5 in America as far as college towns go. I don't know about the overall rankings. I don't pay attention to that. I just know, as far as what I've seen and what I've heard, the city of Athens has to be top 10, if not top 5, just in overall being a college town. Plus, you have all that talent, and you couldn't do anything with it. But of course, now they're actually doing something with it, because now they have a real legitimate chance of winning their 3rd straight national championship. I know that's hard to do, but it can be done, and there's a chance Georgia can do it. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying there's a chance that they might. So now, if you've been a long-standing Georgia fan, now after all those years of misery of thinking every year was your year when it never happened, now you may actually have a team that wins 3 straight national championships. Any thoughts on this? As always, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What are the least expensive type of teeth? Buck teeth. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.